internet! This has been Brode, and you're watching Born to be
Cosmo.
Oh, snap.
Welcome to Born to be Cosmo, the podcast where we talk about all things Marvel Snap twice a month. And somehow we managed to time these shows at a good cadence, because it always seems to be that, the first week it's pretty slow and I start getting nervous, like, oh, we're going to have enough to talk about. And then, of course, the bomb drops, and now I'm worried that we're going to have a 5-hour episode if we don't check ourselves. So the big news is that Second Dinner released a full patch for Marvel Snap on the day of season reset with features, balance changes, new ways to spend your hard-earned money. And we're going to talk about that because we have a lot to say. In fact, we have so much to say that we figured let's bring on a fourth person to add to that chorus of voices. And we are fortunate to be joined by top 200, used to be 100, top 200 ladder finisher, SafetyBlade, also Marvel Snap Zone author, and person who I copy their homework, both to select infinite avatars, decks to hit infinite with. I don't know, you name it. So how's your early reset been, guys, with the new balance changes?
Oh, it's been fun. I don't know. It's been fine. I've been playing a lot of the high evo, like She-Hulk, like the two Hulks and the Abomination thing, and I'm like right around 95. I think I fell back to 93.
Wow, you're moving up quickly.
But it's what happens when you don't have a job.
Soon.
TM.
Soon you won't have this problem anymore.
I know.
Yeah.
It's I like to try to hit the infinite so that I can relax and have fun. But yeah, it's going all right.
Awesome. And I've been doing the same thing, Nate. I've been turning off my brain and playing big green characters to try and climb quickly, although I'm using a slightly less honorable version with Leech. I saw you streaming for a good few hours, Zombies. It looks like you were trying to use some different brews to climb, and then you kind of switched to the green Jolly Green Men also.
Yeah, pretty much. I took a page from your book playing the Leech version. What I started with. What did I even start with? I can't even remember what I played Shaw a little bit before stream when he came out. I wasn't very impressed, so I decided to play Phoenix Force for last night's stream, and that deck tore it up. Phoenix Force is really good when it's bug fixed. Only took half a year, but Phoenix Force is finally a real deck. So
your cause
Phoenix
has been addressed.
Hog. Yeah, I feel like my one-man vendetta has finally paid off. So that's kind of a win. It's all because I took 2 or 3 hours to try and get a stupid combo when the card came out, and I've been forever salty it didn't work. So now it works, and it turns out Phoenix Force is pretty good when you can, move multiple men Phoenixes. You get some pretty big dudes. So that's cool. I've been liking that a lot. And then today's brewing was all about Arrow. We'll talk about that when we get to, the balance changes and whatnot, but it's very amusing to me that I've seen more people posting Arrow decks in the last 24 hours than I have in probably the last 4 months.
Interesting.
So if nothing else, better, worse, somewhere in between, people are experimenting with the card again. And as an Arrow enjoyer, I guess you kind of love to see it.
Yep, good stats for cost. And Safety, what have you been using for your climb? Is your climb ongoing or complete?
Well, I'm top 100 again. I would like to set the record straight.
Okay.
Write that down.
Write that back down. I almost made it last month, but I left it too late. Yeah, it went well-ish. We'll talk about it in balance changes. The meta's a bit strange to me, but I played a lot of the Phoenix Force deck. I liked it when it was bugged, so now I just feel it's like it's unfair that I get to play this. Actually stupid.
I haven't faced it yet, thankfully. So.
Gotta fight fire with Phoenix, right?
You don't. The only thing you only lose when you forget that Shadow King exists is the only time you lose.
And he's not even enough sometimes if you get enough of them, right? Like Shadow King only hits one lane. You have 3 lanes full of big multiple men, and not much they can do.
They're screwed. If it all goes right, there's no deck beats it. Loki played a lot of Loki. I did not notice Chavez being missing like at all. So I feel like people have run away from that too quickly.
Okay.
And
What did you end up?
I experimented with every Sebastian Shaw deck I could think of.
Mhm.
Yeah, who cares about Sebastian Shaw? What did you land on for Loki for the perfect 12? Forget about the cool new card.
Shadow King.
Yeah.
Just Shadow King.
Okay,
Okay.
where Chavez was.
Sure.
Yep. And Jeff for ladder and Armor for conquest. And
Okay.
I'm happy.
Makes sense.
That
Noted.
reminds me. We had a crazy run a couple of days ago with the Infinity Conquest ladder. That was
Oh yeah, that was epic. We went 14-1 with Loki, 3 infinite runs. You ran through it, got your Venom infinite avatar, which was a really nice one.
Yeah.
Then I ran through it. I had to pick one, so I just copied Safety's homework and got the Spotlight Nico Minoru avatar, which I'm pretty happy with. My second avatar. Is that your second one, Nate, or did you have any
No,
more?
that's my second. I've got one other. I've got the Thor Venom. Infinity
Nice.
one. I like that one.
Yeah. And then Zombies went through and the last game took it down to like what, 2 cubes, 2 like health bars, and like
Oh my god, though the reverse sweep on the Galactus deck was crazy.
That was so funny. The second to last game,
oh yeah.
Galactus got me for 8 in the first one, and I was annoyed about it. I was like, all right, we'll play it out. And so just taking him back, I literally had to win 10 in a row because you had to win 2 for 1 cube, or not 10 in a row, 2 for 1 cube, and then 4, so 6 in a row, and then 4 for 2. So regardless, it was a lot of wins. And this second to last game, they have me dead to rights. My left lane is -1 power and it's full, and I'm fighting for the right lane. And they have their turn 6 Galactus. And where do they play it? On the empty lane where I can't play any cards and I'm losing? No, they put it on the right lane where it doesn't do anything. And I tweeted out a picture of that where like, are Galactus players okay?
I'm probably the person who was playing on mobile and they misclicked and locked in their turn, and because there's no undo button, they just sealed their fate. I bet you that's what happened.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think they just got like tunnel vision and were so focused on fighting for the other lane they just missed something. I was really, that was one of the moments of all time in an Infinity Conquest. So that got me to game 5, and then game 5 was a Loki mirror. They were playing a worse Loki deck.
Yeah.
It was the greediest Loki deck I've ever seen. Not only were they the Dino Moon Girl stuff, they hard ran Magic. For some reason I don't fully understand. And I lost an 8 cuber versus them by like a point or 2 points. And that was kind of all she wrote. But it was still a sweet run. We learned that the 3 of us combined basically equal 1 SafetyBlade, because he also went 14-1 with the same deck.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Although I will say, in all deference to you, Nate, that most of our combined might comes from you zombies. We're the accessories after the fact.
Sure.
You made some really awesome plays that day. Also, the other smile of the 3 infinite runs was I think it was my first opponent or my second, that slammed Alioth in the lane that had armor. That I played like on turn 2. That was just there the whole time.
Yes.
That was a moment, taking Alioth Brain to a whole new level.
And I thought they got me for a second. I was like, oh no, did I just play into Alioth? And I'm nervously scanning the board, seeing like, am I gonna get the most points? And then I realize, oh, that glow is the armor shield.
Just kidding.
Before we move on to talk about the patch itself, I just want to shout out Revis, who I saw on Twitter won an absurd 12 was it? Infinite avatars.
Oh my
god. That was
That
crazy. Revis is a machine. Like, if you want to get better at the game, he streams a lot, and I would highly I think if you're looking, especially Conquest, I know he grinded ladder for a bit. But like, he does a lot of Conquest, and if you want to learn, I think he is one of the best people to learn from. He's very good at explaining kind of like the plays and stuff, and it's frankly, that's an absurd record, because I think he turned like 20 something tickets into 12 avatars. That's crazy.
And Revis did it without they didn't just do it with like one deck or
Yeah, we played
it
a bunch
was,
of decks. We
and he
played a ton of
posted
different decks.
and Revis posted them all, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was really I was impressed. It's one thing to get one or two even. I mean,
Mhm.
it's still a big commitment. An infinite run on average, what you said takes
Like
about
2 hours
two
if you
hours and
get like
change.
4 or 5 games, depending on how long the games are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's faster, but it's a lot of time, and you have to do this all in a week, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
space it out.
It's very compressed. I actually hope they change that down the line. Like I
Yeah,
don't
I'd
know.
like it to be 2 weeks. If you have a lot of tickets and it's just kind of also it really sucks. This is not like I don't think this is a goal by them, but it just so happens that whenever Infinity Conquest Week comes, it usually comes with a patch or an OTA. And there've been so many times where I have a deck I really liked that I was farming up the gold tickets with, and then it suddenly becomes invalidated right as it's time for Infinity Conquest, and it's very deflating because you use that deck to farm your resources. You want to put it to like the test, and all of a sudden it's not the same deck anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a good starting point would be for the 5 week months, at least opening it up for week 4 and week 5
I
instead of
like
just
it.
week 4. That
Be
might be a
great.
good
It would
place
be
to
like very
start and see
helpful.
what happens. Yeah. All right. So, with the reset this past Tuesday, so really, today
Yesterday,
is
yeah.
yeah, yesterday. It feels like it's
Feels like
been
it's been longer.
there's lot going on in and outside of Snap. So yeah, we had the season reset a little over a day ago, and that morning, the morning before reset, there was the big monthly patch, and this was one of the larger ones we've received. And so one of the new features was the somewhat anticipated, wearily, at least for me, variant albums. Right? So the idea is that you have these albums of variants, and when you collect a number of the variants, you get some kind of cosmetic reward, be it a variant, one of the new custom emotes, perhaps card backs, keys, other things of that nature. So for example, one of the new albums was for Dan Hip. You get Dan Hip variants, and you can get all kinds of neat things like a Dan Hip Cosmo, which is a lot of good Cosmo variants, but that's among them. And of course, the what we've called the Keep It Cosmo emote, which is an emote of Cosmo wearing like Ray-Bans, which is actually really awesome.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
So they released it, and I was really nervous about this because in the video preview the week prior, they really didn't talk a whole lot about albums. They're like, "Yep, there's gonna be albums. It's gonna be really cool." Like, and then that
And
was it.
emotes, all the emotes, yeah,
So
very
yeah,
vague.
yeah. So basically, I think the catch with the albums that caught everyone off guard is that it's not that you need 12 Dan Hip variants or 12 Venomized variants. You need these specific 12. And this becomes kind of a neat bonus. It goes from being a neat bonus to being something a little bit, I would say, a little bit more sinister. You might criticize me as overreacting, but I do believe that it is meant to entice people to buy more variants, and particularly, people that like to collect venomized variants like you, Nate, or Dan Hip variants like our friend Pigpen. They're all we're all missing, a certain number to get to the 12, and now hopefully we don't fall victim to this, but start chasing them to make up the difference. And I don't know. I think that the lack of information leading up to it kind of was a bit of a red flag, and I think that concern was justified. I know, Safety, you have a lot to say about this because the natural counter argument is, Blue, why are you so upset and animated over this? It's just a thing and it's a bonus. And so you're just getting something on top of what's already on offer. Why is that bad?
Why is it? I can do a lecture on this topic. A saying that I've said forever is that I think I put it in my 9,000 follower tweet. Not a lot of people would have got it, but your 12 coffee isn't free. Punch cards are developed in their own way to actually make you spend more money. They're trying to entice you to spend money, and the whole goal was clearly that from the start. They didn't implement this in any sort of good faith way. There's lots of ways I can think of where they could have, but the goal was to try and add a small amount of extra value to buying stuff that you weren't going to buy, and that is the definition of what they're doing. I mean, that's what they're doing. It's not. I don't think there's any argument that people can logically give to me that it's not that. And the way they implemented it was even more that way because you couldn't even finish it automatically. People who had spent, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars, and they opened the game the other day and they couldn't actually get any of it for free. Not one. 3 full albums. People who own every single card weren't able to do it. It's going to every single month. It's going to be linked with something new, something that's not selling, and it's going to try and push people to want to purchase stuff. They've attached it to emotes, which is super toxic because that's something you have to throw. You can throw in people's face. Like the whole way they've implemented this speaks to an attitude towards monetization, which worries me significantly. Which might seem a bit dramatic as well, but like I do think that it indicates an attitude towards this game, which is a slippery slope. I'm not sure how I feel about it myself even. And it is designed to try and take advantage of people who are vulnerable or not able to make decisions rationally, and I don't like that. And that's why I talk about it. I personally am not going to buy extra variants because of it. But I say that, and I can tell you now, if yesterday, my daughter's laughing in the background. No. If yesterday I had 1 variant left to get that Cosmo emote, I think I would have bought it. And that's the point. That's the point.
Just puts you right on the edge, right?
And yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They bundle, and lots of companies do this. Mobile games are notorious for it, but a lot of mobile games have actually moved away from this because it's an old system.
Right.
But it's like you're trying to get people to buy stuff which they don't want just to get something else. That is never. You're not saving money. So when someone says, whenever anyone in the world ever says, "I saved money because it was 50% off," like you're not right because you wouldn't have bought it at all at 100%. So you spent 50%. You spent money. You never
Black
saved
Friday
money.
sales, right? That now that they're doing
sales are
that.
the worst.
Yeah, some aren't even sales. They just say it's cheaper and
yeah.
people buy it.
It's the save 20.
It's a fallacy.
Save 20% off $100 purchase. Like you just could not buy anything.
And we have a better version of this in the game, right? Like there wasn't this level of discontent when they added the first punch card system, right? They forgot to put the first punch card system in the patch notes, if anyone remembers. It was such like an afterthought. Yeah, with the store, and people really liked it. That was like one of the most positive things they've done with like No Downside and forever. People really liked it. So you would think, if this is just a punch card system, why are people so upset, right? We already got a punch card system, and that was met with universal praise. Now they're doing it again, but it's in a different way, and it's been met with kind of universal animosity. So like, what are the different things here? And I think there's some pretty meaningful differences, right? And it goes back to what Nate was saying, where they showed some stuff off in the developer trailer, right? And those trailers get the most eyes on anything. Everyone knows the chuckling Ben Brode in his flannel. That's why a bunch of people probably started playing the game. They knew Ben Brode from Hearthstone.
That was my reason.
Oh well,
I'm not a Marvel fan. I never even saw a Marvel film before I played Snap. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of people wanted and started playing the game because of Ben Brode, and their videos get, I think, over 100,000 views or something a video. The point is, most people who are like casual players of this game, maybe they don't watch content. Heck, I'm sure most of them don't even read the patch notes, and much less read the Discord stuff. They aren't like us or people in chat with their, finger on the trigger, the pulse of what's going on with the game. They see this thing, they're like, oh, hey, this is the stuff for me to get excited about with this season. And in that video, we saw the emotes. They talked about the albums, though we didn't get very many details or even like a look at them. They talked about them. So people hear about this stuff and they're like, oh, hey, it's a new feature. It's been kind of a while since we've gotten like a new feature. That's exciting. I'm especially excited for the emotes because people love their customization in this game. This game's built around customization. And so people see like, 20, 30 new emotes and they're like, oh, maybe I'll buy an emote or two, or maybe I'll be able to earn one or whatever. And then it comes out and people very quickly realize the only way to get emotes is as a quote unquote bonus for buying a bunch of variants, a lot of which are variants that aren't really desirable even for some of the people who collect the variants. Like in the screenshot here from Nate, I I remember talking to Nate when he had the Baron Mordo Venomized story. He was like, I love the Venomized ones, but I think I gotta pass on this one until they adjust Baron Mordo. And I did the same with the Rian one.
Yeah,
it's like I don't want to spend, especially for a 1,200 gold variant. That's not cheap. Why am I going to invest in a card that I'm literally not ever going to see used? And now it's like, well, now you need it if you want to get that fancy Venom emote, or you need the Captain America Dan Hip, or the Omega Red Dan Hip for the Cosmo emote. And do you need these emotes to play the game? No. But the main pain point, I think, here for people are they were the way this stuff was marketed and the way it was implemented weren't the same. People saw a new feature, they got excited about it. The feature launches, and the majority of the player base is told, "Hey, this isn't for you. Sorry, not for you." And people really don't like that feeling of feeling excluded from something, especially a new feature they were potentially excited about. And they could have remedied this really easily by giving people one free emote, giving people a quest, giving people an option to buy, a few emotes for a few hundred gold or 1,000 gold or whatever. If there were more options for getting a few emotes outside of just in this album system, I don't think people would be anywhere near as upset about it, because people got excited and then they said, no, this is not for you. This is only for people who are willing to spend a whole lot of money on things that they might not otherwise want. So it doesn't really feel like extra if you have to buy stuff that you wouldn't have bought anyways. And then the album stuff in particular, Blue, maybe you want to talk about this a little, but we have Nate who goes after all the Venomized stuff. Pigpen really likes those Dan Hips. Overwhelmingly, most people have Dan Hips, right? You get them randomly. I've seen a million comments of people saying I have 20, 30, 40, 50 Dan Hips, but I have 2 or 3 out of these 12.
Yeah,
I just don't own most of these.
Yeah, that's the boat I'm in. I didn't even get the variants. I have quite a few Dan Hips. Pigpen has 98 and was missing 3 or 4.
He said he's missing. Here's the tweet, right? He says, "Oh my God, Dan Hip rewards are the best rewards. I'm missing 2 out of the specific 12 required. I have 98 total Dan Hips, so I thought I would for sure have the album completed." And it's not a negative tweet, but can you imagine 98 cards and you're still missing 2 of them?
Yeah, it's. Yep. They did say that they wanted this to be something aspirational over the long term. And I kind of understand that, but when you it's when you come out with something that people clearly collect, such as the Venomized or the Hips, and they have that many, maybe it would have been wise to give the invested players a completed album or two. I don't know. I think that the thing that people suggested is, hey, don't make it 12 specific variants, make it any 12. And honestly, if you think about that for Venomized, so how many are in a card? It's 3x4, so you need 12 variants. So 12 Venomized, all the Venomized variants are 1,200 golds. That's 1,200 gold times 12. I mean, you do the math. That's
check. The Killmonger's 700.
That
doesn't make it much better. Yeah,
there
are.
The only one that's 700.
I don't know if it's the only one. There are a few, or at least one that's 700. But you're right.
Okay.
Most
Craven's
of them are.
700.
Most are 1,200. There are a few.
We're talking about
stragglers.
hundreds of dollars for cosmetics.
It doesn't make it any better.
So I don't know. It would make it marginally better, but it doesn't fix the thing that you were talking about, SafetyBlade, in terms of I know I don't say this to speak ill of them. I just say it because it's the truth. Pigpen will go after those 2 variants to complete it. I totally would. I've been thinking a lot about my relationship with spending in this game lately because of financial realities of adult life. I need to set some boundaries around my spend. I'm not a whale by any stretch, but I'd go out and I'd buy a couple of the bundles when they caught my eye, like last month, the She-Hulk bundle, which in Canadian dollars, there's no equity pricing. It's just all based on the current exchange with USD. I gotta rein that in. I gotta stop that. These things tempt me, and I don't trust myself because they know how to get you. It's who wouldn't want the keep it Cosmo emote with the cute dog and sunglasses.
Yeah, or I think more than the emotes, the one of the biggest things I've seen people upset about were like people have been wanting the Cosmo Dan hip for forever.
Oh
Like
yeah,
every time I see that posted, people are like, "Is this out? I really want this. How do I get
yeah.
this?" And now we know, hey, all you have to do, and part of it is also that like all of these collections, they're include not all, but some of the cards they include are cards that are entirely irrelevant to like being played in the game. Cards that are like at the bottom of the barrel. And yes, well, there's a theme to these, right? They have venomized villains, or the Dan Hip one is ongoing. I think it'd be a little naive to assume they went with the theme first rather than, looked at some sales data and saw, hey, nobody's buying Captain America, nobody's buying Omega Red. How do we get people to want these variants for cards they don't play? And then you kind of reverse engineer that a bit where it's like, well, if we make this, an ongoing theme and you need these specific ones, maybe that'll push people in that direction where they'll buy a cosmetic and they don't even have to have the intention of using it.
That's why Baron Mordo's here. I'm telling you. Like, they could have put so many. You see, it's called venomized villains too, because half of them are like heroes, or you get the weird like anti-hero characters like Deadpool and Black Cat. But like, Baron Mordo is a perfect example, right, of the card that nobody ever plays because it's terrible, and now I have to buy it because otherwise I'm not going to get my cool Venom emote that I'm not even going to use. Right, like.
Yeah, that's how they get you. And it's so kind of ironic in a sense that they have pitched this game, hey, a core part of our philosophy is unique collections. So if unique collections and everyone having different stuff is so important, why does everyone have to have the same 12 variants? Is that not the complete opposite of saying, hey, we want people to have different stuff, saying, hey, if you want to get this stuff, you have to get these specifically? Like the feature, I think, would have gone over so much better if it was a larger pool of things. And sure, maybe make it take some more. If they want it to be a long-term goal, that's fine. I think it's totally okay if most people don't get a bunch of the rewards on day one, even if they spent a lot. That doesn't bother me. If you want to have like a long-term goal, make it like 30 hips, but there's a thing every 5 or whatever, and just be any hip. And I think that would have I think it would have been met with pretty overwhelming praise.
Yeah.
You could split things up a little bit more, make the rewards maybe a little smaller, but have more of them. And I think people really would have celebrated that feature instead of what we have now where people are pretty unhappy about it. Even the people who like collecting, I've seen so many people say, I'm a whale. I like to buy and collect things. These albums aren't doing it for me. I thought I would have something where I could, appreciate my collection, look at all the stuff I've gathered, and it's just a random selection of a handful of cards I may or may not have that have nothing to do with the rest of the variants I've collected. So it begs the question, like, who is this for if not, isn't that supposed to be the target audience, the whales? And even they're not very happy with it.
I want to say one more thing. I know we're going to have to move on from this one in a second, but I just want to underline a few things. It's clearly only to try and get people to spend money. Like I don't like they've and I really am. It's getting really frustrating, the disingenuous communication around it. Like they haven't implemented it in any way other than that. It's not a long-term goal. Like your shops suddenly will have 3 or 4 of them in there. There's a little icon next to them to make sure you know it's an album one. Like there's one thing they're trying to do here, which is what makes it so different to the buy 10 variants, get your reward thing, which is still a punch card and it's still not free and it's still getting people to spend more money. This one is very targeted and very purposeful, and there isn't any other way to take it for me. But I just hope that and when I tweeted about it and I've had a few people get really defensive and try and defend it and stuff. I just hope that if one person hears me talk about it or sees that thing and goes, actually, I'm not going to buy that extra variant to get this thing, and I feel like I've done the right thing. That's how strongly I feel about these sort of strategies.
We need to talk about the mystery
this one is
variant
just like
also.
so
Yeah,
great.
the gambling aspect, right? We
Yeah,
didn't really
the-
cover that.
yeah,
And
exactly that,
the featured one when a
This
new
is a big
album
part of
drops.
it.
Yeah, when
This
a new
is-
album drops, you have an elevated chance of getting a matching variant out of the
Elevated
mystery
in
variant.
quotation
So
marks.
so right now you've got an increased chance of getting a venomized variant. Hence that icon on top of the gold question mark.
What
And
did
what are the odds of
Bootman
that?
got 1 out of 4, or is it 0 out of 4?
I saw so many people who said, I
I-
bought this and I didn't look at the odds and I didn't get what I wanted and I'm sad. And I'm like, wow, this actually worked really well, better than I thought it did then. But the odds, if you want the odds and you're in game, if you click it, there's actually a little question mark on the top and it tells you the odds because they're legally required to do that in some countries.
are
And
they?
the odds are not good. So there is I believe it's 6 out of 12 chance to get a random 700 gold variant. A
So 50%.
3 out of 12 chance to get a random 1200 gold variant.
Any
And-
variant or not a Venom one, right? And just any.
And the last one
1200
is
variant.
3 out of 12 chance to get a random venomized or whatever the type is that's being
Yeah,
featured variant.
featured
So
type.
it's a 25% chance. That could be a 700 or 1200 depending on if both of those are available in, but it's going to be one in that album. And so this is I think the most telling thing about it is because I think a lot of people have ignored the random mystery variant. I could be wrong about this, but people generally, want to get a targeted cosmetic for a card they like to play. There's so many cards and so many variants in the game. I don't see many people gambling on these normally because, we've all got the experience already with the battle pass, right? Where
Right.
you open the thing and it's like, oh, this
Get
I'm
your
never going to
pixel.
use this. Exactly. Now this can't be a pixel because it's that premium mystery. So even the 700s aren't pixels, but you get the point. And this is the kind of gamble gotcha type of thing that this is going to get people. And as I've seen a bunch of, it already has got a bunch of people. I know someone who bought the 8,000 gold bundle today, and they gambled all of that gold on 10 of these.
What?
And they were not very pleased with the results. And the most of the people doing this, they don't even look at the odds. They're just like, all right, I see there's a chance I'm gonna go for it. And it's like, and unfortunately, that's just like mission accomplished as far as Second Dinner is concerned. That's exactly what they want. They don't want you to just open the album and say, all right, I'll buy some gold, I'll buy these. No, they want you to have a chance to get it. And I recently watched a really great video talking about how the brain responds with dopamine. And basically the TLDR is some lab tests with monkeys resulted in finding out people, if they're conditioned to expect something, you actually get a larger dopamine rush when there's not a guaranteed chance. Because the chance of getting what you want or the chance of missing on it, it's more exciting than you actually getting the thing every time. And that's exactly what's happening here. It's like when you gamble on a split. It's like, oh, I really hope I get that 10 or 20%. The moment of like excitement before you get it, a lot of the times is more exciting than actually pulling the split.
We've done that every time we open up spotlight caches.
Yeah.
But with this, it's got to be, your chances have to decrease even more the more you have, right? So if I go back to this and say, all right, I'm missing 3 out of these 12. Like, instead of having a 1 in 4 chance of getting one of these, because I've got so many of them, like, I'm only looking for 3 now. So if I would have opened the Craven, now I'm not going to because I already have it, right?
Well, it's still going to be a 1 in 4 chance. I think that they don't stack, so it's not like a 50% to go into the 1200 bucket, and then like it's just flat. So you'll have whenever you pull an 800 gold variant, at least by my understanding, you have a 25% chance or a 3 in 12, whatever the fraction was, to pull one of the 3 that you're missing.
I see.
I don't know what happens if you have all 12. I imagine that just goes away, but yeah. But
Okay.
it's still
Well,
not,
the odds are not in
Yeah.
your favor, not at all.
No.
yeah.
So
Well-
if you flip it, right, you say you have a 75% chance of not getting one.
Yeah.
So there
Wow.
you go.
That's a pretty glass half empty way of looking at it.
Who, me?
Yeah. You're not optimistic enough. Yamao in chat told us that when you have all 12, you'll get avatars instead. I probably need to verify that. I don't remember. But
Yeah, they have a
makes
system
sense.
of like fallbacks, like, hey, if you own all the variants, you get something
Already
else
own.
instead. And it's like the Spotlight cash system. It's a bucket of 12. So when you pull and you get, let's say, one of those 700, the odds change to reflect that. So now instead of having 6 chances out of 12, you have one less chance there. It's like the Spotlights with pulling from that. It's not like you're getting the flat chance every time. So you can't high roll and say open 3 of the venomized things and then go again and then high roll another one. It's just not in your bucket of 12 essentially.
They're saying that it
correction.
says you
It's
have
yeah.
you get a random variant if you have all 12.
A
Okay.
random 700 gold variant. I don't even want to know the answer to that question because I already know it. So you're talking about dopamine hits. So I'll tell you what didn't give me a dopamine hit: the balance changes that accompanied this patch. That I'm gonna move us along to, because there were a lot of changes and there's a lot to talk about. And I think that here's the thing. I think that there's been a lot of people were upset with the changes. A lot of people were happy with them. A lot of people couldn't understand why people were upset. So perhaps maybe I'll start by explaining why I wouldn't say that I was viscerally angry, but I wasn't right pleased. In some cases, these aren't balance changes. They're complete reworks. We finish the season with certain cards performing certain functions, and then wake up the next morning and they're completely different cards. They're not rebalanced. They're just transformed. And that's I don't know. I don't quite know how I feel about that. I think I don't like it, but we'll get into it. And did you end up getting kicked out of the creators program, Nate, for your redacted tweet here?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. This was actually
This
really
was great.
funny. I thought
This was quite
this is
funny.
cute. So you just took one of the responses that Glenn made in the Discord and
We just
altered
redacted
the
a bunch of
message.
words. That's
Yeah.
all. This is parody. This is a joke for everybody who can't take a joke. This is a joke. This is the
I loved
answer
it.
to why Loki was not nerfed.
Yeah. And I think that's worth mentioning for like context, because like some people don't keep up with all the stuff going on with the game. Patches like this, they're locked in advance. We know this. They've said before, like, hey, OTAs are going to be responding to the live game. Patches get locked in earlier, so their intent is not always going to be, focusing on what's going on at the moment. Because when he says in the response, he's like, why didn't we nerf Werewolf? Well, Werewolf wasn't released when we shipped this patch out. Loki, we had an OTA planned for him, so we're not going to nerf Loki before we implement our OTA, where we'll see how he performs. And that on its own is not unreasonable. But I do think one thing, and they like reiterated with this, but I think the big point is, like I mentioned at the very beginning, most people who play this game are very casual. Most people who play this game aren't reading the Discord. Like I said, I bet very few of them even read the patch notes. They just boot up the game and they play the game. And so I don't think, no matter how good your messaging is of, hey, you should have these different expectations from a patch compared to an OTA, I don't think that's ever going to set in with the larger player base. With people who are, very invested, sure, and keep up with it, sure. But I don't think that goal is ever going to be accomplished in terms of getting most people on board with this. And then this issue, I think, was also compounded by a few additional factors. There were less patches in November because of the holidays. It was really just one major patch for the month, and a lot of people weren't happy with where things were going, so that puts higher expectations on the next coming patch. And then I think that got even further compounded when the normal date for a patch is like a week before the season, and they're like, not this time, it's coming out actually the day of release of the season. So there's a lot of theorizing that, oh, hey, they locked these in advance, but maybe they pushed it back a little bit because they realized, maybe we need to make some further adjustments compared to what we already had planned to ship. Now, that's not going off of anything that was said or anything, but I saw tons of people
People
make that kind
speculated.
of speculation or assumption, or because people were just very desperate for something to change, because a lot of people just weren't really having very much fun with how things went in a lot of November.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So, yeah.
So
But
we
I
have this
think we're
bingo card.
yeah. So
We
that
do
was
have
going to be
bingo.
my next question. Did we? How did we do?
Well,
Was it a big swing and a miss, or was it a slam dunk?
Zombie says we got a bingo, but I think we should go through like
Yeah, let's go through it.
here's my proposal. I think we should like go through each of the balance updates and then revisit our bingo card and see like did it check one
do
of
it
these
as we
boxes?
talk
Okay,
about the
we'll do it
changes,
live.
see
All
if it
right,
applies.
we'll see if Zombie's initial pass was accurate or done in anger, or maybe both. Maybe both.
Oh dear. All right.
All right, so yeah, giver. So what was our first card?
America Chavez. R.I.P.
So this is what I was
One warrior.
inferring earlier. This isn't a. I'm sorry, guys. Like this is not a balance change. This is a complete redo.
Oh
And,
yeah.
It's
Um,
Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man.
It's
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
yeah.
So America Chavez was a 6 cost 9 power card that read starts on the bottom of your deck. Draw this on turn 6. So it was the way to turn a 12 card deck into an 11 card deck. It made certain strategies viable, most notably Apocalypse discard really relied on Chavez. Frankly, so did Lockjaw.
Mhm.
Draw your Lockjaw. A lot of strategies.
Combo decks
And-
in general really
yeah.
appreciated the effect.
And it was changed from a 6/9 to a 2 cost 3 power. On reveal, the top card of your deck gets +2 power. So a Surfer card,
Uh,
A Shaw card.
a
uh-huh.
Shock, and a Surfer card.
The shore card, yes.
Yeah.
You see what Lammy says? They just war songed my Chavez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat
so
said that too. He said that the America Chavez change should have made her a 2/3 with your charge minions at +1 attack.
So for
This is
those
great.
that are unaware, this joke is from early Hearthstone. Warsong Commander was a very powerful enabling card, and basically when they nerfed it, they just completely reworded it, and it became unplayable, and it never saw play since until it was reverted in the Eternal format. But that's a whole other story. So when you warsong a card, you completely murder it. And actually, I think that Chavez in current form is a very playable card. The problem isn't the card itself, at least for me. I think it's a below average when you have things compared to it. But it's the fact that they could have just made a new card that did this. They have to change America Chavez. I didn't think of this, and I don't remember who said this. It might have been you, Zombies. I don't want to credit you if you didn't say it, because I thought this was particularly cynical, although I can see it. You know, we talked about how they're so intent on selling us cosmetics. And,
Oh yeah, I was talking
cards.
about this.
Yeah, this card is kind of like, if you make every card an 11 card deck, then you're not filling it full of cool new cards. So this is kind of a bit of an economy nerf. I don't know if it's that, but definitely I was not pleased with this, because I have no issue with the new ability. I just have an issue that it overwrote Chavez, and it sets a dangerous precedent, because any card that you acquire can be now changed. People will say, well, Blue, this isn't a card that you would have opened in a reserve. This is, part of the new player experience. They're part of the stock set. But
how many times have you split this card?
There we go. Thank you. Yes, somebody finally says it.
I know it's a lot. Like 20.
It's a disconnect. It's a fundamental. So when they completely rework cards, it fundamentally is at odds with the idea of how do you level up in Marvel Snap? How do you get more cards in Marvel Snap? Unlike other card games where you buy a pack or you craft something, that's not how Snap works. Snap, whether you like, hate, or have no feelings about cosmetics, they push you into, hey, you have to split your card in order to level up. That's part of the core gameplay loop. They entice people with splits. They have different rewards for it. They clearly want that to be something people are happy about and find enticing. And as such, people get invested in the cards that they have, especially cards that are key to their deck, or maybe like Chavez, they've played since the start of the game. And like Nate said, they've probably split a lot of times. I know so many people who have split Chavez a million times, have really cool looking ones. They love using the card. And when you fundamentally redesign a card, especially in a way where this doesn't really feel fitting to the character too, for people who like the how it was kind of a lore thing. I know you liked that, Safety. You brought that up when this change initially happened, and it feels really bad because at least with Spider-Man, sure, the Spider-Man change was a bit controversial with people, but it made it feel more like Spider-Man, and it also turned a card that a lot of people had a negative perception about into a positive reception. And that didn't really happen here with Chavez. Now, I'm not saying there weren't balance or design constraints about Chavez. I'm not saying they nerfed this card purely so they can get you selling more cards, but I think it'd be foolish to ignore that not being at least one part of the decision. I think there are a lot of different parts that went into this decision. That's one of them.
Yeah,
But why it's gone over so poorly is because a lot of people were invested in the card, liked the card, and now they can't keep invested with that card they liked and played for so long because, simply put, the new America Chavez just doesn't go in very many decks. Like, it's a good starter card. There's, Shaw
God,
decks, maybe a Patriot that like it, but like
the
what else? Where
autocomplete
do you play this?
fiasco.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That was my. I made it. I took Apocalypse. Someone tweeted this. I think it might have been KM Best. So I tried it for myself. I took Apocalypse and I auto made a deck, and it had Chavez in there. And so I rated the patch the same rating I gave that deck. Right, Chavez out of 10. Like, it's just, and bots. I ran into a bot that it was a discard bot. They still have Chavez in their discard deck. It's hilarious. They just slammed it, and I was like, how did they play that on turn 2? And it's like, oh yeah, it's a 2/3 now, not a 6/9. I'm so wired to think of Chavez. It just gives me a shock when I see it come down on a curve.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of funny.
I mean, I get the the elephant in the room is it limits design space, and I get that, but it's like it's the beloved card, right? And now it's invalidated, and it's just sad.
And not even just beloved, like, man, really pour one out for your discard friends. I saw more screenshots of like fully blinged out discard decks in the last like 2 days than I have in the rest of Snap's history. And those players are really feeling that, that conflict, because Apocalypse discard just does not function even remotely. Like, it's not like the deck got nerfed. The deck got nuked from orbit. You can't play that deck in functionally the same way.
Yeah,
with Chavez not existing.
The only non-linear thing about Apocalypse discard was that last turn where it's like, what's it going to be? Am I going to discard Chavez to Dracula and play Apocalypse on the field, or play 9 power and discard, the 16 or 20 power Apocalypse into Dracula? And that kind of like you create that guessing game dynamic. That's gone, and that was a real fundamental part of that deck.
It was fun. I think on both, there was some fun there on both sides about trying to plan around your opponent. But Safety, I know you've been a very big America Chavez fan since the beginning back in beta. What was your like initial reaction or feeling after seeing? Because we've expected a Chavez change, the idea of it, for a little while. But what were you feeling when you saw like this is the way they're going with it?
So it might be more nuanced than you think.
Okay.
I actually don't. I understand why they would want to make the change. I don't like that they're changing cards fundamentally like that, because people do get invested into it. Chavez was a key part of so many of my decks for so long, so that does hurt a little bit. But I also understand why they might want to make that change, and I don't think any change was going to be well received because of the card they have to change. It's
Sure.
just people have spent far too much time with her to be happy about this. That card, what they've released, is beyond average. It's below average, in my opinion, to have a card which randomly hits the top card with 2 power. People are trying it, and they're moving away from it very quickly. But it is a card which I could see is reasonable in Series 1 and 2. So, look, I don't think is ever gonna work making a change to Chavez. I think they should have considered these things a bit more before they actually make them in the first place. They should have thought of this when they were making the game, and they shouldn't punish people who have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Well, you know what would solve? You know what would solve problems like this? A rotation system. But
We
But
will
I-
save that for another time because
Yeah,
that's a
we'll
whole
s-
podcast episode on its own.
yeah. We should
Problem.
yeah, we'll save that
The
for another
problem is this
time.
tension. There's this tension between
Mhm.
like we change cards to keep the game fresh, but you can't like people. It's the game. You're changing the game fundamentally, and that's like not really something people should be comfortable with. Really, honestly, they shouldn't feel that they can do this. They
Yeah.
shouldn't have felt like they could do. That's my problem with it. And they could. The other way of dealing with it would have been making better cards to compete with it. There were times when I would play Elias over Chavez. You guys all know it. There was a whole period of time where every single deck I saw, I just took Chavez out and put Elias in.
Right.
And
Like,
I'm
there
sure
was
you
a
weren't the
time
only
when-
one, right? Like a lot of people were
No,
doing
I
that,
did it
and
in
also
low-key for
Mhm.
ages. Like it's not like she was required for all these decks. It's just that it was more comfortable, and there was a lot of people attached to it, and it is easier to make a deck of 11 cards than 12.
For
So
sure.
you don't have to worry about what that 12 card draw is going to be. You know, you got 9 power to put somewhere. Like there's more value to it than just the draw as well. It's easier to select 11 cards than 12 cards, and they said it in the patch notes. I think. I hope it was the patch notes. But that it was pushing out the 12 card index all the time.
Yep.
So even though they might not be directly trying to do it to make you spend more money, they're acknowledging that you are not trying the 12 card because of Chavez.
Mhm.
Like often it was you make a deck of 12 cards, crazy combo, whatever, and then the next part of your deck building process is like, what card do I absolutely not need so I can put Chavez in? And that was a routine. And that 12 card, that's what they want you to put extra cards in your deck. Therefore, you need more cards. There is a part of it. It might not be their intention, but there is a part of it what links to that.
And it
So-
hurts budget players, right? Because if let's say you were missing one, higher cost card for a deck, well, a lot of people just threw in Chavez. Oh, I'm missing X, Y, or Z. I'll just throw in Chavez. I don't have it.
So did
I'm not
the
attached to people because I don't split my cards. So
Mhm.
yeah,
I feel
the only person in the world who doesn't split their cards. Always a hipster to the bitter end. I understand why you don't. It's you get them to infinite and then you stop there. And I usually do the same unless I do go for splits because I'm weak that way. Did
actually partially because of stuff like this. People like this isn't a card game in traditional sense. People are attached to these characters. It's the character game.
Yeah.
People, I've played multiple people who have all gold discard decks that they played only that deck and they play only that deck. And you play especially at the top in the top 100, 200 people. There's a bunch of people who are one tricks, and you see them playing the only them cards, and they're obviously very attached to them. And to have it completely reworked. Of course they're going to be upset. And the fact that people can turn around and be like, oh, they shouldn't be upset about it. Like, have some empathy. I don't know.
Yeah, that's can be kind of rare. We did hit a bingo spot on this one though.
did we? I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
what,
I have the
what did we
notes
get?
up, so I'm looking at it. They specifically mention better aligning with our philosophy for the game and the kinds of things we want to be strong, interesting, and healthy. for
Oh,
deck building.
more in line with.
So healthy for the game, I think that qualifies.
Yeah,
It could be
I
a
would
couple
agree.
like healthy for the game, or also opens up new strategies, right? Because this was a like
12
Wow.
cards, not 11 kind of thing. Actually, I
Oh.
think this was actually two. It was healthy for the game, and it was also future buffs, because part of it, they're saying, well, some players are worried that this might make their deck worse. At the very end, they're like, however, if a deck is meaningfully weakened, this also frees us up to buff them or aim more designs at specific archetypes. So to me, that says, hey, if your deck is really bad now, we can buff it later with either new cards or buffing.
They did
old
say that.
cards.
So future buffs. Yeah.
So I think that's like a two for one. They
2
didn't
for
give
1.
us the avoiding this change like I thought we would get on this one, but we did get, I think, 2 spaces out of this one.
wow, value.
3x value.
Oh yeah, 3x. 'cause
Well, the
of
free
Dark
space I'm
Hawk.
counting. Yeah. So you guys you experimented with Shaw, zombies, and safety. Like this card was obviously like an obvious include for a Surfer Shaw deck because it's it hits Shaw, and Shaw's good with Surfer. So how did you? I heard you weren't too impressed by it. I guess is really the bottom line, even in that very specific context.
It gets big, like sometimes, and the key point here, I think, is Shaw isn't a bad card. or I'm not trying to say Shaw is a bad card. I like the design. I think it's kind of a neat card. It's just kind of like Dakin, where it goes into a very specific deck, and it
Right,
doesn't
yeah.
really have much application outside that deck. And
Docking
right now,
sense.
at least, the deck that it goes into, it's not doing very powerful things. Don't get me wrong, you can win some games with it, but it just feels like it's not really all there. And Shaw isn't the thing to push it over the edge. He's not Loki. He's not Elsa. And I'm not saying we want him to be, but it's very much just kind of a if you're someone who doesn't buy the battle pass every month, if you wait for those cards that make the most impact, Shaw might not be the month for you unless you are a diehard Silver Surfer fan.
All right, so what I'm going to propose is we've got a lot of other balance changes to go through. This one was the big one because it wasn't a
This was
balance
the
change; it
big
was a
Band-Aid.
rework. But I propose that we maybe pick up the pace a little bit, else we'll be
Sure.
here all night. Sorry to be the buzzkill. So we'll give our thoughts briefly, and then we'll check the bingo card, and we'll kind of wash, rinse, and repeat. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and here's the next rant-worthy one. Okay, Alioth. Alioth was this is the second time Alioth's been nerfed. Originally, it had its power reduced from 5 to 3. Now it's been changed to destroy all unrevealed enemy cards here, as opposed to all cards played here this turn. So basically, you know,
Well, and it got nerfed also. Jeez.
oh yeah, and it got nerfed to 2 power as well from 3. So a pretty significant nerf. Funny story really quickly. One of my casual friends messaged me saying, they nerfed Alioth, it's really good. And I'm like, really? Are you still going to get upset when you lose to Alioth? Because it will still beat you when you don't have priority. He's like, yeah, I guess so. I'm like, so is this a good change? I suppose not. I think that the card's still playable, but it does take it down a notch.
It's a nerf, and it matters in certain cases. But I think the point to hammer home is it doesn't. The situations where people were getting frustrated by this card, and Safety said it really well. The reason people hated this card so much is because people don't like retreating a lot. They like seeing how the game plays out, and Alioth inherently punishes that. And now the card is set in stone in a way where they're trying to drill it into your head. Hey, if I'm losing the game, if I'm behind and my opponent's ahead, I should expect this because it only works in that scenario.
Yeah.
And I think you give it like a day, and I'm sure some people. I've already seen people still complaining about it because people they fundamentally want to see that outcome, and then Alioth happens, and it leaves them with a bad feeling. And knocking one power off and knocking the ability to do it when you're behind off doesn't really satisfy the people who really hated that. There'll be less of it, so that'll make people a little happier who disliked seeing it. But
all right, what do the patch notes say?
Let me look real quick.
This has to be not fun to play against. No, I know it's not fun to play against because I was mad about this. The patch notes say, I'm not even looking at them. I remember because I was mad about this the other day. It
Bad
said,
reputation.
Yeah, it said that it said that its win rate and cube rate were acceptable, but it had a bad reputation. This got nerfed because it has a bad reputation, which is
so not fun to play against.
Bleep.
Yeah, so that we get a stamp on not fun to play against.
I'm so angry.
We also get a stamp on good card gets -1 power.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think those were it on this one. Did you have anything to add, Safety, about thoughts about this card?
I'll just yeah, I feel like this is one of them cards. Like Loki is similar. I rant about Loki every single stream about how it just shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the game, what they've created. But this card, Alioth, the original Alioth, was an average card, but people play badly, maybe blunt. And therefore it was a good card because people play into it. They don't want to play around it. They didn't want to even try to work around with it. So therefore it was a good card because of how people play, not because of the effects, not because of the power, none of that, just because how people play the game. It's a stealer of joy only because people stay in. That's it. That's literally the only
internal data too.
Is it internal data?
Yeah.
It's internal data. I actually agree with the comments in the patch notes on this one because every single stream I'd lose to it at some point, and someone would chime up like, "What a fun card! Oh my god!"
Oh yeah, people
love to hate it. Yeah. I think it's internal data,
and it's also a series 4 or 5 card nerf.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Series 4 or 5 card getting nerfed, right? That's one of them.
So glad I spent my 6,000 tokens on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that honestly,
3x value.
I had a similar thought. Like it was funny because you guys convinced me to buy it. I wasn't gonna buy it, and I
Mhm.
did. And then I played it a lot 2 seasons ago, and now I mean it's still playable, but yeah, I feel kind of
Barely.
well, we'll see over time. But yeah, no, it's considerably weaker than when it was released, considerably. Yeah. And they just introduced the Rian Gonzalez version of Goliath.
It's so cute.
It's not out. They just showed the art. It looks
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it's really good. It is really good.
Anyways,
All right, well,
Yeah.
gosh, we almost have a bingo already. That's crazy. All right, well,
I know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, we're 2 cards deep, and we almost got the bingo.
all right. Next up is Luke Cage. So, oh, I forgot to unhide a Cosmo emote. There we go. So Luke Cage is ongoing 2/2. Your cards can't have their power reduced, and it was changed to ongoing. They got a buff, I guess, so now it's a 2/3. But it says ongoing. Your cards here in this lane cannot have their power reduced. So RIP Hazmat.
Yeah, this was definitely a change that I don't think anyone really expected. This kind of feels in line with what was happening probably when they locked this in. We're like, oh, they were seeing all these decks run Luke Cage. They were running all these decks with Luke Cage and Shadow King and all this stuff, and I think that kind of gave them the general notion of, hey, we don't really want all the decks running Luke Cage as like a catch-all to, oh, I'm boosting my power a lot and I don't want you to be able to interact with that. And they also talk about, hey, this is a general design philosophy, where we are essentially trying to make it so these 2-drops don't affect multiple lanes. And we're going to see that with another card. And that on its own, I don't think is a bad general philosophy, but I think this particular change really just hammers some decks so hard, particularly Cerebro. It's funny. I think this is the one where they mentioned Cerebro 3. Like, hey, we like to help out our friend Cerebro 3 when we get a chance to. It's like, this card is now worse than Cerebro 3. This card is now, and Nate mentioned Hazmat, and they directly said, yeah, maybe we'll look at Hazmat again. But it's not, it's just not. People are quite upset about this because, again, nobody really felt that bad about Luke Cage, and I don't really disagree with the change a whole ton, but I think it's just like Chavez, a real big feel bad for the decks that really needed this card to do their thing, and now there's like no alternative, and you went to sleep one night, you woke up the next night, and your Cerebro 3 deck is suddenly worse.
is Cerebro that Is Cerebro that popular of a
Cerebro is
strategy?
really, really popular with people.
Okay. Yeah,
It's
kind of like
a
negative,
very,
I guess. It's got its
it's
niche of supporters.
it's just an archetype that people really love. It's like kind of a meme, but like in card games, people are just very, they like to latch on to that they identify with Cerebro. They like the challenge, and they don't care if it's meta or not meta.
It's fun. It's fun, but like it's not gonna be some crazy power outlier, and the locations lose you the game more than like.
Yeah, and that's why I think
know.
people are mad about this, not because other people are going to interact with their Cerebro, but now Cerebro gets more screwed over by locations again. And that's I think what's going to upset people from this change. I think the philosophy thing is a reasonable argument, but I don't think that's going to make people necessarily feel good about the change.
This is a big hit. Going from global to localized. Yeah. Big change, although it's in line with a lot of the other changes that we saw. So this is probably something that we're going to see of more in the future. I wonder if it's ever going to apply to Killmonger. Wouldn't that be the day, huh?
Oh,
Killmonger
God.
only kills the one drop.
Yeah, right.
In the same
People
lane.
have asked for that for a long time. But hey, it's not a 2-drop. So, maybe in the future. But for now, it seems like they're really aiming their scope at the 2-drops. And Luke Cage is one of them.
We we talked earlier very briefly about them communicating the changes, and like I faced someone earlier today who played Luke Cage Hazmat, and like I won that match because the Hazmat nuked all their cards too.
Yeah, people haven't like realized or are still trying to play it, and oh man, it's as someone who has played a bit of Hazmat, it was already a bad deck. Now it's like borderline like
No
just
more toxic
bad.
Sarah. Yeah.
No more toxic Wolf. I love the little toxic
yeah,
Wolf
right,
deck.
yeah,
That deck was a lot of fun, and now with the Luke Cage change,
Evo
it's just dead.
Evo
Sad.
be feasting. So
Yeah, they
what do
even
we-
said like, "Hey, we'll keep an extra sharp eye on Evo because we know this is a buff to
What?
strategies that do that." And it's just like it's a domino effect, right?
We're gonna end up in this world where everything is just a vanilla 1/1 because we can't.
except the season pass card and the ones in the spotlights.
Well, and
yeah.
they can't touch Loki either. I mean,
This was another healthy one, but we already hit that
Yeah.
bingo card. Future. Wait, was this Series 3 card nerf? Luke Cage Series 3.
Oh yeah, that Luke Cage became a Series 3 card when there were still series drops. I remember those.
Yep, all those years ago.
Pepper. Yeah.
Back in the day. All right. I think that we'll see. I think that there's one thing that perhaps I'm sympathetic to with this is that at times Luke Cage did become a bit too ubiquitous.
Yeah. I
But
don't disagree, but
now it's like it's unraveling that tapestry, right? It's like, well, now they're gonna have to nerf Evo, and they're gonna nerf Evo again, maybe. And it's just like, like where does it stop? Anyways,
Yeah.
so our next card. Let's move on.
The other two drop. Everyone's favorite October season pass card.
all right. Sorry. Here we go.
Yeah, so Elsa went from being
we have I've got Shadow King too. Sorry.
You got Shadow King? No, it's all right.
We can
different
talk
order.
Shadow King. That's fine.
Shadow King. So I think this is actually pretty inconsequential. It was just -1 power.
Yeah.
It still has the same effect. On reveal, set all cards here to their original base power. It was a 2/3. Now it is a 2/2. I have nothing to say. The card's still going to see play, and it's still good. And
it's for the 1 power doesn't make a difference. I agree.
No, it's the swing
It's actually,
of Shadow
actually
King.
better
Right?
now.
oh,
Because
Why
you
is
can
it
play it in
better?
Cerebro too.
It's actually better.
get out of here.
Luke Cage now. Luke Cage is so telegraphed now. But Shadow King's like
Yeah.
significantly stronger.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
true.
An actual meta issue. Like, it's a real problem. It's gonna be a big problem. I guarantee.
Yeah, they
Good
say
better
that in the
power.
notes, basically saying, hey, now that he has to avoid Luke's location, he can basically, before if they played a Luke Cage, even after you did the Shadow King, they got the power back, right? But now it's like, if they tempo out Luke Cage and they're not going to hold that Luke Cage for the late game, you know which lane you can turn off and which you can't. So it definitely does feel like Shadow King got stronger, so they're making him less of a premiumly statted card. And I don't think anyone was. I have yet to see one person who was like, man, I really hate that Shadow King change. I don't think anyone.
Or I'm
Maybe
gonna
Cerebro
take
3
Shadow
players.
King. Yeah, that I think it's that. Or I'm going to take Shadow King out of my deck.
Yeah,
I think-
people are still playing the card.
I think Luke Cage is a bigger hit for that deck, but yeah.
Oh, did they say it's more in line? Let's see.
Yeah, so what do we get for this
One of the
non-change?
most benefiting, seems strong, blah blah blah. I don't think no. They didn't. I don't
We
think
already
this
did the
one.
-1. We already stamped that box.
Yeah, it hits some previous ones, but I don't think this one hits any new bingo cards.
Okay. Well, that's appropriate because this was a non-change, really. So let's move right along to
All
our
right,
next,
we got
uh,
Elsa then.
Here
Okay.
she is.
This is another one where a friend of mine asked me a couple weeks ago, I really want to buy Elsa. Should I spend 5,000 tokens completely free to play? And I told them, well, I mean, it's taken a big hit from where it was released as. It's still decent, but there's going to be a balance patch on the 5th. I would wait and see what happens before making that investment. And they said to me, oh, that's reasonable. I got a message yesterday like, thank you. You saved me 5,000 tokens. And it's like, it feels so bad that like you have to make these decisions on what to buy and not buy because of something that a casual player wouldn't even realize that there was an upcoming balance patch. It's like the person who buys the iPad 3 days before the iPad 2 comes out.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of feeling there. So this was changed from previously nerfed state 2 energy, 2 power. If you play another card to fill a location, give it +2 power to a 2/3. After you play a card that fills this location, localized again, give it +2 power. However, there's more. The sequencing timing has changed. So previously, if you played a card as the fourth card, it would get the buff if it got moved out, say by, say it was Spider-Man, for example, that jumped out of the lane. Previously, Spider-Man would get the buff. Now, I haven't seen this yet, but I understand that
Brood will get a buff now if you play it in an Elsa lane, because the broodlings
Right.
fill and he gets a buff afterwards. That didn't used to work that way. So basically now, and another very common example that I'm sure people will try and whiff on in Surfer is, well, let's say you're filling up a lane with like a Nova, but you also want to put Killmonger as the final card in that lane. Previously, Killmonger would get the buff, the on reveal would go off, Nova would explode. Now, the on reveal goes off, Nova explodes, there are only 3 cards, you don't get the buff in that lane. So this was a very meaningful change, not only to it only buffs a lane, but which interactions work with it and which don't. And in the bit of testing I've done with the card, it definitely feels like a fairly significant nerf just on that alone. Like discounting, even if it worked in all 3 lanes, I think that would still be a nerf overall, just losing that interaction. But now that it only works in 1 lane on top of that, it's like they are basically saying the only time you want to play this card is if you're playing a Kitty Pride deck. That's about it. Like the other interactions aren't worth.
To me, Elsa released too powerful. They nerfed it. To me, this is not a nerf. This is, again,
This is
a
like
fundamental
a murder.
change. Well, it's a rework.
I thought it was fine after the last nerf. Like it was not even seeing that much play.
Fine's even a stretch. It also was kind of bad. Like,
what do you think on this one, Safety?
Yeah.
I don't understand this one at all. It's so it doesn't make sense when you're playing it now. I've played a lot of it since they changed it. It just doesn't make sense. Beast doesn't work. Killmonger not working. Spider-Man not working. Silk, you trap Silk in lane now, and they're in control of it. Like every good way of playing this card has been destroyed, so that you can play Brood in the location, and you can only do it in 1 location.
And it's a 2/5 like Chavez.
If it wasn't for Chavez, like this should have been this is major. This is like ridiculous. People paid for that.
Yeah, and
2 months ago.
It's weird seeing this happen to Elsa when like people were more upset about Loki and him just like, getting ignored and all this stuff. And Elsa, not only did she get nerfed in a record amount of time, she got an immediate one to follow it up, even though she wasn't even being played very much.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy to me.
I'm just disappointed because I like to play this card. Now it's changed again. Anyways, so did we get the bingo with
yeah, so all right, it's not the exact wording, but I think it applies to the thing. So they're talking, one of the reasons they changed this, and they did another generalized change because the same reason, is to be more in line with player expectations. Many players found it confusing how Elsa worked, where filling up with an on reveal happened after the Elsa trigger. So to me, and you guys can help weigh in on this if you think it's worth, but to me that falls in the more in line. They're trying to make this more in line with player expectations. That's literally a big part of the reason they made this change, is because they're getting all these questions. People think it works one way, it doesn't. They want to make it work like people think it works.
Yeah, so the exact wording they used was
we saw that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the wording they used was line up with expectations. So does line up with expectations align with more in line with?
Yeah,
I don't know. This
line up and in
we're
line.
Taking a bit of a liberty.
It's the same. It's the message to me. It's like the intent, not the exact wording. To me, that counts here. I know we use quotes and stuff.
We'll let our special guest be the judge, jury, and executioner on this. So, Safety, do you believe that the text in Elsa's balance notes, that they're changing Elsa to line up with expectations, player expectations, is the equivalent to the more in line with square on our bingo card?
I'm thinking more in line with. Yes,
so,
I do.
You do. So you're ruling that it doesn't
Yep.
have to be a literal one-to-one copy because the text, the spirit of the text is the same. All
Yeah,
right.
it's the intent.
Spirit of why I remember
I-
why that was added to the bingo card. The spirit of why it's there is there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I
And all the-
made you judge, jury, and
and all the
executioner.
moving
This is
parts.
so for those that complain that we rigged the bingo card, it's all SafetyBlade's fault. All right.
Yep.
Let's go
Add
on.
him on Twitter.
Yep. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and then tell him why he's wrong.
Please do that.
Well,
All
we,
right.
can, we can just stop the episode now. We got a bingo.
Yeah, that's a
Let's go,
bingo.
Look at that. Look at all these Cosmos.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
And
good
we've still
snap.
got what? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more main ones, and then some. Actually,
All right,
kinda
well,
like
let's
5
get
main
through it.
ones.
We're running
Yeah,
short on time, so we gotta lightning round it. All right, what do we have next? Yeah, I really like
Kitty.
Elsa Kitty. So Kitty
This is a
Pride.
quick one, right?
Yeah,
Like,
this was a buff. And Kitty Pride went from being a 1-0 to a 1-1. I guess to go along with new Elsa. And yeah, there's not much to say about this except yeah, I don't know.
it's
Okay.
they nerfed Kitty because of Elsa. They nerfed Angela because of Elsa. Kitty was really strong for a long time. Then when they nerfed Elsa, suddenly Kitty became really bad, and this is them trying to make her slightly less bad. And I think that's, and they even say, with the change to Luke Cage, we're not exactly sure how this is all going to land because Elsa and Luke Cage have been changed, but we can deal with it later with more changes if the package of Kitty, Elsa, Angela needs further adjustment. So that could be interpreted in, hey, if this is too strong, we can nerf it again, or hey, if it's too weak, we can buff it again. But it felt like a kind of wishy-washy thing, just saying, yeah, we went pretty far with this. Now that we're nerfing Elsa and nerfing Cage, we want Kitty to have more of a chance. Elsa's not busted. We'll see what happens in the future. Have fun.
Yeah, I think that they'll have to, if they want this package of Kitty, Elsa, Angela to be viable, they'll have to probably play with the numbers a little bit more. Frankly,
I
I'd
can't
like
believe they
to
put
see-
it to 1. Like, with how hard they nerfed Elsa and Angela, I can't believe they're like, all right, 1 power. You know what this feels like? This feels like the Utau change to me. We're like, we're gonna be careful with this one, and then in like a week they'll be like, all right, maybe we were a little too careful. She's a 1/2 now, because like I don't think it's that
maybe they'll make
crazy
Kitty
of
a
a
1-2 in the
difference.
OTA, or maybe they'll change Angela to start ticking up 2 power again. I don't know.
Well, let's
All I-
not get crazy. Let's not get crazy.
Well, all right, fair enough. I just think that it's a whatever. But that does give us
Yeah,
a
nobody seemed to care about this one other than like
bad
Kitty fans will
card.
try again. Yeah,
Bad card gets +1 power. Is Kitty Pride a bad card though?
At 0/0 she sure was, especially with
At
nerf.
1-0?
Have you guys I can probably count on one hand the amount of kitties I saw after the initial Elsa change.
I just, it pains me to.
And I
to
played
put-
her today, and
Yeah.
I had some okay success, but like
pains me
Kitty
to
is
put-
not the card she once was.
We're
not even
basically saying
close.
Kitty Pride is like a Watu tier right now. Is that what?
Well, not a Watu tier, but I think
Alright, let's
if you
stand
ask
it.
most people,
It's a bad
what if
card.
1/0 Kitty Pride was a good card in the meta during November, I think most people would say she was a bad card.
Let's see what Untapped says for Kitty Pride in the card meta. So it puts Kitty Pride. I don't even understand how they do this. I wouldn't take much stock into this. Kitty Pride is listed as a. I'm looking.
See.
I don't even see it on here.
Nobody's playing it.
No, I don't see it on here at all.
Did they forget Kitty exists? I think a lot of the
maybe-
players did.
Yeah. Well, it's still Series 5, right?
Yeah, Kitty's still a Series 5 card. The only Series 5 card to ever been in a bundle.
Oh no, here it is. I'm just blind. It's B tier. So they're saying it's
That's
mid.
generous. That's generous.
Well, it's a combination of play rate and win rate, but right now its win rate's pretty high. I mean, it's the new
probably because it's
season.
just played in the Loki deck, and the Loki deck probably boosts. Like it's the worst version of the Loki deck, but a lot more people have Kitty Pride than say Werewolf.
Right,
So
right,
I
okay.
wouldn't be surprised if the fact that some people still put it in Loki pumps up the stats a little bit, right? But I don't know. Have you guys seen much, if at all, Kitty in like the last month. I really
I see
haven't.
it on occasion. Like it's not super common, but it's
Yeah,
I see it once in a while.
I don't really see it anymore. And I mean it's a
All
buff,
right,
but
bad card gets +1 power. Kitty Pryde is a bad card, and there you have it. Sad days indeed. Okay, what do we got? What's
we got a
next?
happy one. Look, hey, there were actually some good changes in this patch. They're overshadowed, but I think this is like the coolest change of the whole patch, which is the Black Knight.
Yeah, because you just bought it.
Yeah.
This
Yeah, right.
this was a big buff, a massive buff. Like I don't want to
Huge.
like exaggerate here. The card went from being unplayable to the build around I think we all hoped it would be.
That's
So
true. That's
Black
true.
Knight itself didn't change, but the Ebony Blade, which is generated when you discard your first card after playing the Black Knight, changed significantly. So it went from being a 4/0 that has power equal to the card discarded. So if you discarded the Infinite, your Ebony Blade will be a 420. That hasn't changed, but they added ongoing text to the card, reading that it cannot be destroyed and its power cannot be reduced. So that is a spicy Ebony Blade. Yeah, that's an exciting change, a scary one. It's like you have this change to Ebony Blade right after the Kitty Pryde from 0 to 1 power. Like talk about putting all your chips in on taking a gamble on buffing this.
Yeah, and
I
they
haven't played it yet, but
it's
Safety Zombies, if you just bought it,
I just
so
bought it, so I haven't really played it, but I played against it, and it actually we should let Safety take the wheel on this one because he's played the card more than any of us, and he had
yeah.
sounded like an interesting experience playing pre-buff Ebony Blade. So how'd that go for you, Safety?
I have a hate for this card because I used to get boosters for 3 weeks. I had to keep playing it, and I kept trying.
Why did you have to get
Couldn't do it
boosters? Explain this to our
because
audience. Why did you
I
feel
aim to
compelled?
split. I aim to split every single card with actual gameplay. So
Mhm.
not spying or doing any of that stuff that people do. I aim to play enough games to get the boosters in every card. But when one dodges it for ages, I'm stuck playing it because I need to get the boosters. And it was horrible. And a hot take, I think it's still not that great
Really?
because of the combinations.
But
You still need to actually get. I'm beating these decks so easily.
yeah,
They're not
Really?
that great.
That's a shit. It
but
seems
how
like a
many
big power
times
increase.
when you played
I
it?
want to try the Ghost Rider Professor X
Yeah,
one again. I think that will be really good. But I haven't got around to. I do not want to play it because I played it too much.
and you probably saw a lot of Shang-Chi and Shadow King that made your 410 or 420 a 4-0 or
Yeah.
just a 0-0, right? Like that was the reason the card was so bad, right? It could be destroyed, you had to
Yeah,
get it down
it's a good
early,
card game.
and it got its power reduced. It was just weak to two of the most powerful and popular tech cards in the game. And
Which
I
now somehow they think it's okay to make it not interactable
yeah.
with whatsoever. But that's the reason they think that's okay is because when you're playing the card, if you get it too late, it's obviously bad.
Yeah, it's like
And if you get it
useless.
early and it's not in combination with the card in the right spot, like it's really bad too. You
Mhm.
played on one, you need to draw the big card the next turn for Blade. Or you need Lady Sif to be in hand, and then you need Death to be in hand, or Infinite, and only Infinite, and not the other card, but you don't want to hit. There's just so many fail states for the card, and it ends up being a lot of the time you'd rather revive it with Ghost Rider rather than Black Knight anyway. So it's an awkward card still.
Yeah.
But I do think it's like let's say actually a good card now. Like it's significantly stronger, obviously, but it's still awkward.
It's still mid.
The problem
It's like its own mini
problem
Hella,
is
right? Everything has to line up.
Yeah.
that's the issue I have. I hate them. I hate Hella and I hate
Mhm.
Lockjaw, and I will hate Black Knight for the same reason that I will be stuck at thinking, do they have it when they snapped?
Yep,
Those
yep.
are two of my favorites, Safety.
Yeah, so
I hate them.
it's funny to
Yeah.
see them move away from. I think in general, what this patch is showing us is 1 year into Marvel Snap, they're finally moving away from tech cards being just as crazy universally. It hits everything. Now we're getting these exceptions, right? Now Ebony Maw isn't getting Shadow King or Shang-Chi, and we won't talk about future cards today, but there's a card that might be coming next year that also has this kind of, hey, it's a 10 power card, but it can't be destroyed. And so it feels like they're trying to be like, hey, we want you to play these cards that are in Shang range, which is one of the bingo things, by the way. Not that they said it for this card, but they said it on another. We want you to play a card that's in Shang-Chi range before turn 6. So we're going to give you a little built-in insurance so you can actually do that rather than have your big fancy thing just blow up to the tech card people run in a lot of decks. And that's a very different philosophy change than we've had in like the first year of Marvel Snap, right?
I don't hate it.
Different.
Okay. Well, I think this is a change that we're all either pleased with or indifferent with. I mean, you went out and bought the card, so that's
yeah. Oh, I love this change. I mean, I think it's a bit pushed, but I think for a card that needs everything to line up like this,
it was so
push
bad.
hard. It was so bad.
It was
push
so
hard.
bad.
If it's too good, pull it back. Right?
Yeah.
Like they can always, and that's kind of their philosophy. But we do hit a bingo slot on this one. Released 2 week. And I don't think anyone is surprised by that. I think everyone knew this card released 2 week and wasn't working.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's mark it up and let's move on to the next card.
Another.
I just want to say this
puff.
as we fill out this card, it's making me want that Cosmo moat even more than I already did. It's look, it's got the little sunglasses.
I know.
I'm gonna buy Dan Hip Ant-Man for this nonsense.
Oh,
all right.
Gosh.
What was the next card on the list?
Ravonna. I was really happy about this change because I liked the idea of Ravonna. Ravonna got the shortest end of the stick imaginable because not only did she release right before Mobius and a bit after Loki, to where, hey, if I want to do cost reduction stuff, Loki does it better. I can't tell you how infuriating it was to try and play a Ravonna deck, have to build your whole deck around it, and then have Loki steal your cards and essentially get a better Ravonna effect. It made me very unhappy. Then they made her a 2/1, which was better because she's kind of like Zabu, but for a different subset of cards. But they erred on the side of caution with the power. And now we're seeing them undo that. They clearly missed low, and now they are pushing her pretty significantly up from a 2/1 to a 2/3. And I've played a bit with this card. You aren't really seeing it yet, but I think it's going to catch on. This card is actually rather strong in the right deck. Like you're playing a Darkhawk deck with Black Widow, Darkhawk, Mystique. Maybe get a little greedy with an Iron Man for Iron Lad. Like this card, now that it's an effective premium stats for cost, and it gives you mana cheating, it's really good. It's also better in negative.
Yeah, this is so we joke oftentimes about like +1, -1 power, but going from a 2/1 to a 2/3 is significant. The stat lines matter a lot on the earlier to play cards, and 2/3 is kind of they said it in another previous balance change that we reviewed before, that it's they view 2/3 as premium stats. Yeah, I mean, decks that wanted to run this are happy. And perhaps it opens up new strategies, like you said. So a pretty neat change. You're the resident deck brewer here, SafetyBlade. Do you think that this opens up the potential to include Ravonna in decks that otherwise wouldn't have?
Cerebro 3.
Cerebro 3, yeah.
They say that in the notes too, by the way.
Let's stop for a second.
Of course they did.
No. I had a running thing with Snapzone for a long time. Like I had to try and not mention, I tried not to mention Cerebro every single time because people would get annoyed at me for not mentioning Cerebro every single card.
That's great.
Cerebro 5, Cerebro 6, Cerebro 7. I'm like, no, just no.
That's how much people love Cerebro.
There you go.
I don't think it's any new particular changes to the decks, but it's definitely better in the decks that I had Ravonna in. Like that's it, really. Like it's a better card, and 2/1 is a big hit for 2 energy to be down 2/1. You lose priority. It's less power obviously at the end of the game. Like it's a huge change. It's huge.
Yeah.
Darkhawk goblins. I expect one of them will one of them will be a good build, and she's great, much better in my white tiger deck now.
Yeah,
right. That's what I thought of
now.
when.
It's good.
Very so good I don't think we get any.
You want to play it now?
Yeah,
we don't get any bingo stamps for this, do we?
No, internal playtesting. Although we already hit that one.
Yeah, we don't
There's
get
some
any new.
repeats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, internal testing. That's a new one. We didn't hit internal. That's the Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
Although I guess we kind of. Although they are different. We hit internal data. This is internal testing. They're a little different, but similar.
Yeah. All right.
But they did say in testing, yeah, we our internal playtesting evaluations for Verona clearly missed low. So
There you go.
pretty on the money.
All right. Next up.
Oh snap! Oh gosh,
We
this
still have
change.
quite a few to go through. We gotta.
Some of these are. A lot of these are small though. They're not really.
Oh snap!
We've
Yeah,
got
there we
the we've got the rant though to try and fit in also zombies. I know that you have a lot to say about one of the upcoming changes. Okay,
Whatever.
I'm gonna be really quick on this one.
Crap.
We should have had a bingo square that said arbitrary, unnecessary Thanos nerf, because that's what this is. Thanos went from being a reasonable deck to just completely being pushed out of the meta by Miss Marvel. And now they've changed Mind Stone from drawing 2 of the stones in your deck to drawing 2 1-cost cards. It's unplayable. You'll draw your rocks. You'll draw the wrong cards. I don't know. Sure, if you have all the other stones, it's still a playable card. But like, I mean, no, that's it. I don't even have words for this.
Yeah, but you can draw Nico, Blue. You can draw Nico.
I mean, like, you know, I joked that the patch notes would say, many have affectionately referred to Thanos as a mid-bad. This pejorative term
Mid-bad.
hurt our feelings. So we've just decided to make Thanos bad.
A bad.
Because that's what this is. Yeah, Thanos is the bad. And I between Soulstone and Mind Stone, it's unplayable. And you know what? I'm going to call it right now. In February, it was data mined that there's going to be like a Thanos week. So in the spotlight, there's going to be Thanos and a new 4-drop that specifically works with Infinity Stones. There's no way that Thanos stays in this state when those cards drop. I'm calling it right now. You can jump on in February and said I told you so, and I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But
they literally say it in the patch. We have future designs planned. We aren't doing this to nerf Thanos. That's not our intention. We're doing this early so we can see how it affects Thanos and how we need to respond if necessary. So because there's also their whole driving factor here isn't even the new card. It's a location. They're making a location that gives you a random Infinity Stone, and maybe that idea SafetyBlade had about reworking Ebony. Who knows? But there's a location that's going to give you a stone. And they're like, well, we like low rolls, but we felt that people getting a Mind Stone off this felt really bad. So we want the Mind Stone to be a card that can, work for non-Thanos decks from this. They didn't say this location, but we know the location's coming. And that's literally their reasoning for doing this.
I hate this change so much.
It sucks. It really does suck for Thanos fans. Thanos fans are already having a rough time. It's absurdly rough into a Loki focused meta.
There were a bunch of people that the scams Thanos thread on KMBest Discord where a lot of people cook Thanos lists. Like a bunch of them were like, I'm just gonna stop playing the game. And I can't blame them. Like if you're a Thanos one trick, which generally in card games I don't really understand one tricks, but they exist, right? I mean, people really love this card. It has a really unique effect. I mean, they're just completely out of sorts right now. It's just terrible.
But it's okay, Blue. They'll fix it later, maybe, possibly. So don't worry. Don't be sad in the moment. Be hopeful for the future that might not come.
Wow.
Is kind of the logic that is used here. It's just big sad for Thanos, and
yep.
I don't think there's much else to say about this one other than
literally unplayable.
I love how they start it with bet no one claims called it on this one. Nobody expected this coming.
Congratulations.
Well, you're sure right about that. You're right about one thing.
I have a lot of regret that we didn't include an arbitrary Thanos nerf bingo square, so we could have said, "Ha, we were right."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sad. It's sad.
Yeah.
Poor Thanos. Pour one out for the big purple man. And if you're a Thanos fan, well, we'll see you in February.
Yeah. Come back and say I told you so when they don't buff Thanos before
Yeah.
Okay, this next change is really. Oh, did we? We didn't get any squares off that
I
one,
don't
did we?
think so.
Don't think so. No.
We'll double check when we finish with this one. We can, but
Yeah.
or the
So
next one.
this.
But
So this is a bit of a weird change. So basically, Spider-Man was changed, as well as cards that function similarly to Spider-Man, that when Spider-Man reveals and does the pull or the move, it can only move revealed cards. Previously, it could also move unrevealed cards. Now it cannot. So this is a bit of a mechanical change. I haven't played any Spider-Man since the change. I haven't had it played
I
against
played
me.
with
so
all
I-
these cards.
So
wait,
do you
wait.
think
Every
this is
single one.
The graphic says it only affects unrevealed cards. Is that right?
No,
No, it's revealed.
Revealed. So the
I
graphic
think
is
that
wrong. Okay.
yeah, I think there's a little mix up there. The TLDR on this change is they were like, hey, a lot of people again doing something to remedy confusion that I guess they're seeing is a lot of people were confused. Hey, you can't blow up face down cards. Why can you move them? And because
Why
apparently
not?
people
Like-
didn't understand the difference here, this is why 4 cards are changing. And one of which is significantly for the worse, which I'm very much looking forward to talking about.
Oh, let's talk about it then, since you're on,
yeah,
on
well,
subject. I think this is
yeah, it's just-
substantive.
I hate this change. It really wasn't that complicated.
So what's the change?
The I mean the change in general of move effects
Oh,
not
okay,
hitting
yeah.
unflipped cards. I really don't think it was that complicated. And like if you played with Spider-Man or you played with Stegron or you played with Juggernaut or Arrow, if you played with that card one time, you saw how it worked. And I don't think you're going to expect it to work differently. The fact
Right.
that they think it is a necessary thing to change this because apparently people are confused, it doesn't work that way with Destroy, which is an entirely different mechanic that has nothing to do with move, that blows my mind. It feels like there's a lack of respective intelligence for the general community of the people playing this game.
Well-
With this change, that's genuinely like
I mean, I'll say
mind
this
blown
to be
by
devil's
this.
advocate. Like your play experience differs from many, but I would agree.
Sure.
Just because I have people I know in real life that play this game in that casual capacity, I hear what they complain about or what they talk about, and I've never once had anyone complain about this particular interaction.
It's all
Of
Captain
course,
Marvel. Why didn't she move? Not why didn't unrevealed cards move, or why did they move? Like I hear a lot of questions from
Yeah.
Discord, Twitch chat, at YouTube. I don't think I've ever gotten a question of how moving cards works with unrevealed stuff. So I think this took like everybody off guard. Like I don't think anyone expected this. But yeah, they changed Spider-Man, Stegron, Juggernaut, and Arrow. Spider-Man and Stegron, very minor changes.
Stegron got a buff.
Yeah, Stegron did get a buff. However, Cerebro 5 players don't view it that way. Because he's a
Arrow got
4/6
a
now.
buff.
I like this. I
them's
will say
fighting
I like the
words.
Stegron change. I actually do like. I mean, it's sad for Cerebro 5, but I do think Stegron felt so mid as a 4/5, and I think that extra point of power is put to use. And knowing the things that you can hit rather than gambling on hitting a thing they might play, I think that's a net positive for Stegron most of the time. I think he's like the only card here that actually came out ahead. Spider-Man, I think, feels slightly worse, but it's kind of not that relevant. It'll come up sometimes, but I think majority of the time, it's not a crazy change. Juggernaut, literally the only thing changing about Juggernaut's their exception. Juggernaut gets to be the exception to the new rule because he gets the including unrevealed cards in the text. The only exception to what Juggernaut will not hit is if they goblin you, he's not going to bump a goblin away to a different location. It's only
Right.
cards on the opponent's side. But other than that, Juggernaut works exactly the same as it did before. Then Arrow. Wow. So how did Arrow change? She went from a 5/8 to a 5/9. Oh, they buffed this card, right? Move the last enemy card played anywhere to this location. For a change that is designed in the sake of simplicity, this card just got way more complicated. I played it today.
Yeah.
The amount of times people thought it would do something different than it was doing was very high. And it's something where you have to actively think about priority because it completely changes how the card works. So what this text change does is if my opponent is, if I have priority on turn 5 and I play arrow, it's going to move the last card they played last turn. If my opponent has priority and I play her on
Right.
5, it'll move the last enemy card played that turn. So what the card does is entirely dependent on, hey, am I going first or am I going second? And that makes this legitimately a crazy more complex card. Like you cannot easily evaluate situations like you could before. And on top of that, it completely nukes like kind of her old job of it just pulls the last card the enemy played. Previously, the arrow was a niche card, but in the builds that found a use for her, mainly Sandman from my experience, was you get ahead, you use arrow to yoink the last card your opponent plays on the final turn into winning you the game. She wasn't very played. She has been pretty mediocre to bad ever since she got nerfed almost a year ago. And now they essentially said, well, she's no longer going to do what she did before. And I just don't understand why they decided to make the card more complicated when they could have just made it an exception like Juggernaut. It literally would have made the card easier to understand and play if they just left it like it is and said, all right, we'll have 2 exceptions, not just one. I am genuinely baffled. And as someone who finally found a home for my favorite card here, having it just completely destroyed because they decided they wanted to update a move mechanic and she didn't deserve to be an exception to the rule, it makes me genuinely question like a whole lot of decision making going on here because it's not a simpler card to play. It's
No,
a
I
lot
watched
more
you-
confusing.
I watched you play it on stream earlier today, and I saw you throw a couple games because it was just unintuitive and kind of just awkward is probably what I would say.
It's just a totally different card than what it was before. And for the general player trying to understand how this works, I doubt the general player fully understands how priority works. How are they going to understand how to use this card effectively?
Maybe not as extreme as Chavez, but kind of more in line with Elsa. This is less
It's
of
a
nerf.
fundamentally new card.
Yeah, it's a rework.
It's a whole different card.
It mechanically operates differently. They didn't decrease or increase the power level. It's a paradigm shift. They changed the parameters with which it functions, and I haven't tried it myself, but like honestly, 5/9 is like giga premium stat line. So like when I saw that arrow is a 5/9, even though I wasn't sure if it was going to be good or bad, just on the basis of that alone, I just assumed that it was not going to be good because, it's like Doc Ock, right? Like Doc Ock's a 5/10, which is an amazing stat line, but it's got an ability that could be a liability almost at times as opposed to benefit. I think Arrow's that now. What do you
it's
think,
like Magneto, right? You're pulling a card over so that you're getting more power to compensate, but your power is not really that much more because you're pulling an enemy card to contest its power.
And now you have less control over that too.
Yes, a ton less control.
What do you think, Safety? Arrow, thumbs up, thumbs down?
It's situational, isn't it? Like I'm thumbs down because it's a fundamentally different card, like you said. It is a different card. It's situational though. Like there are situations like if I was playing against say bots on my climb, I would be very happy to have this premium stated card, which I can plan to pull a 2-cost card across. But there's lots of games where it's just a complete liability. It's a Dr. Octopus, like you said. There's matches where last turn they played Darkhawk. I'm on turn 6. I can't play my arrow now. I have this brick in my deck. It's fun. It's not that it's a bad card. It's probably still a good card in a lot of different situations, but
it's just so conditional. You can't plan around it very well. And it was funny. The biggest cope I saw about it was, well, if you think about it, if your opponent plays Miss Marvel mid on 4, if you have priority, you can arrow it away and mess with the effect. And to that I say, how, unless you are playing your own Miss Marvel, how are you beating them for priority going into turn 5? To where you're having more power than them. And then when you don't know what card's coming down, it's a total gamble what this is going to do. You don't know what that card... Are they going to play one big thing? Or are they going to play a few small things to where this is largely irrelevant? Or are you going to pull a thing that's bigger than Arrow? You can't before you knew how the
Mm.
card functioned, yes, there was some like I don't know what they're gonna play, but I know I know which of the cards it's gonna pull, and now I think this card genuinely is going to cause a lot of confusion to players. And I'm at the point
Oh,
where
yeah.
it should be. I think this card should be a 4-drop. Knock some stats off. 5 is such a weird spot where you can only use it on 2 turns of the game, and unless
That's
you have
the
a
problem.
really good
Or ramp.
1-drop on turn 6, you kind of need to play this on turn 5.
That's the problem. It doesn't work with ramp anymore because you ramp it.
Yeah,
and now you
it
don't
doesn't work
actually,
with
you're
Sandman.
no longer in. It's just not working the way you want it to. Now,
Yeah.
look, just to Zombies is a bit upset because his favorite deck got hurt.
I am.
But I will say overall the card actually does seem on paper a better card now, which is strange to say, because you are a bit more like if you it is more stats and it does a thing every single time, but there will be times when it's not going to fit in the same decks anymore. And yeah, I don't know if I like that. It killed a lot of decks. It kills.
And the
it's
reasoning
especially
is
in the
because it
EDC,
was
it's not there anymore.
complicated.
And it wasn't being played. Like, who was playing
wasn't
this
being played.
card other than me? Like, there were so few Arrow players. I said at the start, I've seen more people. One upside, I guess you could say, is more people are experimenting with it again because it got changed.
Yeah.
But I've seen more Arrow deck posts in the last like day than I have in the last like 5 months. But
Right.
like, I really do think that not being able to easily determine the outcome of the card is just such a big hit to like the general design of what it was trying to do. And while this new card, I'm not saying it's, giga trash tier, it's a terrible card or anything. I think the fact that they made a they're not consistent. They're making this move change to make things more simpler and make sense. I want to check the Discord in a week and see how many people are saying, I don't understand why Arrow moved this card instead of this card. Because I play the game a ton and I miss that. Like, how are it's because it's all dependent on priority. The average Snap player is not going to understand this.
Think of the chat engagement you got from people typing in PSI though. That's got to be
Yeah,
worth
there is a
something.
ton, and people telling me, "Oh, if you play the Arrow now, it'll do this thing that it doesn't actually do." It's a Twitch chatter's favorite card because they get to say, "Hey, you're wrong here."
Twitch chatter backseat dream.
Yeah, it just makes me really sad because if they made it so no cards move unflipped cards, then at least they would be consistent.
Yeah,
at
it's
least they
still
would
not
be
consistent.
consistent. If they're gonna make an exception for one, and the whole point of this is about quote unquote being simplistic and easy to understand, why is the result of this change making a card literally like 4 times more complicated than it used to work? This is causing more confusion, not making things make more sense.
Chat answered your own questions. PSI, plain and simple. So get good, zombies. Yeah, no, again, this is another like head scratcher, huh? So we'll have to see with this one, especially since it's such a big change. But at least it's got the one thing I'll say about Arrow as opposed to some of the other changes is that 5/9 on Arrow feels a lot more substantial than putting 2/3 on Elsa for those equivalent reworks. I think that maybe there's a chance here. We'll see.
We hit a bingo one on this under Shang-Chi's radar.
Oh really? Is that
Shang-Chi
cited?
mentioned.
Well,
Yeah,
Shang-Chi range, yeah.
Yeah,
so-
they
Yeah,
say,
all
hey,
right,
she's under Shang-Chi.
So we got 2 bingos. Let's go.
Well, I don't know if it's a full bingo, but it's a thing on the card. It's
Oh, we got a bingo stamp. Okay, I thought
we
that
got
was
a
like
stamp. We got a stamp.
Yeah, let's see where this one goes. Shang-Chi range is bottom left. Oh, it's well, I guess
Wow,
not.
we hit a lot of these, huh?
Yeah. We almost have one with opens up new strategies and reminisce on old cards. We have one more change to review, and so we'll see if we get another bingo off of it. This is not so much a balance change as it is a defect fix or a bug fix, but since it fundamentally changes how the card works, it was actually listed alongside the other cards because let's be real here, guys. This one's a buff, and I'm talking, of course, about Phoenix Force. And so Phoenix Force, the text didn't change on the card, but I'll just read what they wrote. We usually call out our bug fixes at the bottom of the patch notes, but we're doubling up on this one because it's fairly impactful to gameplay. When you make a copy of a card merged with Phoenix Force now, such as when you play Phoenix Force to Sinister London and revive multiple man, you will be able to move the original and the copy. So previously there was a bug, you couldn't move the copy. And there was one person on the Discord, the Marvel Snap Discord, that kept asking about this card. When's it going to get fixed? Why hasn't it been fixed yet? Because this bug has existed effectively
Since it came out in
day one.
July.
Yeah. And that was you, zombies. So what? You want to make my life miserable by going up against these Phoenix Force decks that make multiple men in all the lanes? Thanks a lot.
It's great. Look, hey, if Loki gets to break the game a bit, at least we have our own little Loki count. Because Phoenix Force was already a pseudo. Loki didn't like to see it. Well, now Loki likes to see it even less, as do other decks. Because Phoenix Force, it is a good card and a good deck. And it's funny, I wasn't even a giant Phoenix Force fan. I was just annoyed by the fact that they sold a card as a season pass card that had a very niche interaction that was a cool idea but wasn't very good, and that one niche interaction didn't even work properly. And it continued not to work properly for months, even when it was out of the season pass, even when it came back to Spotlight caches. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I get it. Bugs happen. Clearly, this was a more challenging bug to tackle than I think this is like Kitty Pride release level bug, where this was not something that was simple for them to fix. Otherwise, they would have fixed it sooner, because it would have sold the card better, right? But it just rubbed me the wrong way that a card existed broken in the game for like 6 months, and it significantly affected there's not even that many things to combo with this card. Like multiple man's like the main one.
Torch
maybe with Torch, but then you have to clone it to begin with, right?
Yeah.
But I've been forever salty about it because I spent like 3 hours the night it came out trying to get the combo to work back when it was 5 mana, which made it even harder. Yeah. And then it didn't work, and I was very sad. So I'm very happy about this. Is it balanced? Is it unbalanced? Who knows? But it made the deck good, and I'm gonna enjoy it while it works like this.
I've been seeing it a lot on ladder, but I can't really say if it's balanced or unbalanced because it's kind of like they play Phoenix Force. You got to snap early with this deck, and the people I'm queuing into are not snapping early.
Because you will crush them when it's a combo deck. When your combo lines up, it's like hella, except it happens earlier, so it's more telegraphed. Right. It's not a big cube equity thing. But man, if you have the multiple mana to destroy into Phoenix Force, you're snapping on 2 before you show them that multiple man. Like it is, it's that kind of deck, and it's I'm glad this card is finally having its time in the sun, because it's a cool design, and I think it has earned it after 6 months of being one of the worst cards.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it's overpowered. Now we finally get to see it at the power level I think that it was originally intended to be at.
And also a quick little "I told you so" to every single person who said, "That's not a bug. That is a balancing decision. This is intended by the developers to not work this way."
They said it was a bug like 6 months
ago.
But
I know that they said that, but you would not believe how many people are like, "No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. They didn't say that. No, this is clearly a balance thing. Maybe they said it's a bug, but if they fix the bug, they're gonna nerf the card." I've lost the list of how many people told me that, and this is
maybe they were just saying you're wrong. Maybe they were just trolling you. I hope they were trolling
people
you.
Believed it.
I know.
People believed it.
Yeah, I hear you. It's brutal.
What did you think of this one though, Safety? Like you've played your fair share of Phoenix Force, and you are a fan of all things Jean Grey, right? So how do you feel about this happening?
The fact that it was broken in the first place was just so like the whole saga has been something else. It's just hilarious. The card is incredibly busted.
Okay, we got an incredibly busted rating here. All right.
It'll be. I can even tell you what people will say. They'll say it's high skill capo. It's only problem at high skill levels. Blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The card is really. That's what's going to happen. People are going to say it when people catch on to how actually broken this is.
I mean, is it tricky to sequence? I know, really, Nate, that you tried it out like for the first time yesterday, and it was not as intuitive.
It takes
trip over yourself a bit.
It takes some learning. I think once you get it, but like, it's just it's not something that I want to ladder with at rank 95 when I've never played it before. So I'll learn it over on the proving grounds. I mean, I think once you figure out the lines, it's not a big deal. But
It's just the moving sequencing gets a little confusing when you have multiple men and you're tracking. All right, this one goes here, but that's going to fill up a board space here. And then if I have to incorporate a ghost spider, how do I factor in like how much space I have? Like that. Those are the parts. The actual playing the first 4 turns out is rather simple.
This sounds a lot like Werewolf by Night. You
No.
have to manage your lane. Your
Yeah,
lanes.
kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like I've been playing it the whole time. I haven't stopped. Like, so last week when they said they were fixing it, I started playing it, didn't I? And I took the Brazilian screenshots of like 40 multiple men on the screen before they even fixed it. But it required like the problem with the deck is that you have to think about it from turn 1.
Yes.
And it's not you have to be like, I'm playing multiple men on this lane. Will I be able to destroy it if I draw the card? But you're always thinking about what happens if I draw 4 different cards. So it's not as linear as it seems.
Because you're not getting Phoenix every game. You have to
hard.
pivot a bunch of games into different game plans.
The pivot game plans are a bit.
Those are a lot harder.
Are complicated. So you play Nimrod. So you'll plan a lane out to play Venom on a lane, for example. Like so, you got a plan so that you can play Venom. So you can Zola the Venom and hit the Nimrods into different lanes. But they can be a bit hard. They're not as hard as they seem as you get used to it. And the deck is incredibly flexible and incredibly powerful once it works. And now that you can move.
And kind of tech immune, right? Like it's just Shadow King. Shang doesn't hit this. And Shadow King can only hit 1 lane, right? Like it's just very.
They also nerfed Shang-Chi, so you can do like 9 power multiple men, and none of them can get hit with a Shadow King, and you can move 4 of them in 1 turn, and then they can only Shadow King 1 of them lanes, and that's 2 of their energy. Not enough. The only times I lost the whole climb when I forgot that Shadow King could possibly be an out for them. That was it was all on me. It was not the deck, and that was me making mistakes. The deck is too strong.
The deck is too strong. All right. Well, now
but it won't be in most players' hands. It's literally going to be a Loki scenario. I feel like, except I don't think people will hate it as much.
All I'm going to play now a Loki and Phoenix Force, and I'm just going to enjoy that.
So I should finish my climb before this. Yeah. So I'm hearing you say I should finish my climb before this catches on, huh?
Although at least the silver lining is, I think, as people catch on to it, they're going to lose a lot. Like it's like when Hela has the Invisible Woman and they play a card on 5 and it's like, all right, I know what's about to happen here. It's not like it comes by surprise. Maybe some of the alternate Nimrod lines can take people by surprise sometimes, but I think super duper powerful, not a whole lot of cube equity once people have ran into it a handful of times.
I hear you say that. I know what you mean, but also
But also people stay sometimes when they shouldn't, right?
Yeah, so they've got Shadow King in hand and a Dark Orc, and like, if I win, there's some, to them it's a 50-50, but to me it's not a 50-50, and that's the problem with Snap.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I know exactly what I'm doing. You think it's a 50-50, but it's just not. It's just actually not a 50-50. That's 8 cubes lost.
I agree.
I agree. Yesterday too, where I lost to a Valkyrie because I forgot that was a possible out. And it wasn't a 50-50, and I thought it was a 50-50, and I lose 8 cubes. Like, so that is I don't know.
It's a fair point. It's a very, very fair point that, even telegraph decks or whatever, it's easy to think you have an out when you don't, especially if it's something you're not used to playing against, right? Because, I mean, most people haven't played against a whole lot of Phoenix Force.
And there's weird interactions where you can move the multiple men and you can put a card behind it and it won't go back, and there's some strange stuff you can do where you move it and you can move it in a certain order. You'll Zola the certain card. I guess it's not intuitive at all, but once you get used to it, it's like incredibly strong. And I say about Loki, I felt like I was playing a different game to other people. Playing that.
Oh wow! So you think it's on that level?
Yes, the same as Loki. Like Loki, people going about high skill and stuff. You get used to it. It's not that hard. And I feel like I'm playing a fundamentally different game to you. You all try
checkers versus chess, right?
Like, you're trying to play Miss Marvel in the middle and play a card here and a card there to do 15 power, and I'm just going 20 power here, 30 power there, and I've got 5 of your cards. It's the same with Phoenix Force. It's when it all goes right, I'm playing 4, 5, 8 power cards I can move wherever I want, and you've got 15 power you can put there, and you maybe can play an Annihilus to move -10 there. Like, not the
Yeah.
same. Not the same.
It's pretty nuts. It's pretty
So
nuts.
I don't think we get a bingo stamp for this one. So I think
no.
So I think our bingo
It should be
card
a
is
whole card of itself.
yeah. So there you have it. That is the remainder of the balance changes. That was one of the biggest patches we've ever received in terms of balance changes. And we got bingo. And as you can see, there's a dramatized version of Nate Wolf on screen. Excited that they got bingo, although that looks like cribbage, not bingo. But neither here nor there. This was very unexpected. I think that for me, I was, forget about the Thanos change. Most of the patch really kind of caught me off guard.
And many others, right? People were very. I don't think people expected the majority of these changes, like at all.
Well, we tried to keep it within time bounds, and we almost succeeded. But
I think we got there if you discount the little pre-show chatting.
Okay, fine.
It's a technicality.
We got there as a technicality. But Safety, I know that you didn't plan to join us originally, and it was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. I'm really thrilled that you were able to lend your voice and expertise to this conversation. I think that the biggest bomb you dropped on me is that you think Phoenix Force is going to be the next meta tear, and so that's something I'm going to pay attention to and maybe try to better understand the deck so I can play it or play against it more effectively. And of course, Nate and Zombies, appreciate you guys making the time as well. This isn't our normal slot or time, so it's quite late for you, Zombies. I know that. Appreciate that as well. So that's it. I think we're going to be watching the meta really closely and share our thoughts on that when we reconvene. But for now, I think that with the variant albums and some of these balance changes, if the tone had a little bit of a negative show, I apologize. But like I always say, we just it's straight from the heart. We don't have an agenda. We do this podcast strictly for fun. And we'll call out the good, we'll call out the bad, and I think this is a lot to mull over. But I unfortunately am weary with a lot of the things that we saw in this patch. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's my.
Looking forward to the 2021st. So hey,
you guys, all right, yeah.
OTA, last
So
OTA of the year, 21st.
Prediction before we sign off.
Yeah.
Will there be an OTA? Because they said maybe not.
They said no. They confirmed it. It's confirmed. There was mixed messaging. They were basically like, "Hey, we're gonna have the patch, and then there's gonna be an OTA on the 7th, and then no more for the rest of the year." And then they're like, "All right, slight change of pace. Patch is actually the beginning of December. We're skipping the 7th OTA, and there will be one OTA before the end of the year, the 21st." Let me
pivot really quickly because I was in error. So there is going to be an OTA before Christmas. Will Loki get hit in this upcoming OTA?
Yes. Only because they, and I wouldn't say this otherwise, in a Q&A thing, they, for the first time, I think, like ever since they actually did the first OTA nerf, they said, do we think Loki's still a bit too strong? They outright said, and that's like pulling teeth from them to admit Loki is too strong, but they actually use the words, yes, we think Loki's too strong, especially in Conquest. And so my guess is that, especially given the negative reaction to this patch, partly being because a lot of people wanted a Loki change and didn't get it, because this patch was done before the first Loki nerf even happened. This is from the post that Nate
it's
made
actually
the
here.
joke
The part it says, is Loki too strong? The part that's blacked out says yes.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
So this was a joke, but
that's crazy stats. It's 21-2 in Conquest last season. Is that Phoenix Force or Loki?
Loki. That was my Loki
Jeez.
one. The Phoenix Force was I didn't do that in Infinite Conquest. I did Phoenix Force to get all my tickets. Actually, won all my tickets with Phoenix Force.
It sounds like the tip here is if you want to have a speedy climb, play the broken deck, Loki and Phoenix Force if you're feeling up to trying something new.
Yeah.
and before the OTA, because it sounds like we got a confirmed Loki change. Will it be a direct hit to Loki, or will it be Loki adjacent?
I mean, they could still not change it, this thing or whatever, but I think they're going to make some direct change to it. I think they've shown they clearly want this deck to be a thing, and they answered a different question where they're like, yeah, we're kind of trying to figure out how we balance these cards that, according to our internal data, the magic word, aren't too much of a problem at, general ranks, but become much more of a problem the higher up you go, where people are better at playing with the cards and playing the game in general. And I don't really know how they're gonna handle it. I think they're definitely going to strive to still make it a playable deck for the people who like it. But does that mean they're really light and they make it so the Twitch chat suggestion of just make it so he can't make cards cost 0, then Loki will be fine, which I don't agree with at all. But will they be that light with it, or will they go a lot further and say we're removing the cost reduction entirely, or we're upping him to a 5-mana card, or you only get 3 or 4 cards instead of your full 6 or 7? I have no idea. I imagine they're going to err closer to the side of caution, but also try and be impactful enough, because I think they know if they miss on this, just seeing how upset people were that no Loki changes were in this patch, I think there's an incentive for them to make it feel like whatever change they do, lighter or heavier, feels like it has an impact.
Well, hopefully, Second Dinner will keep it Cosmo with the OTA and give us the Loki change that will make us feel good, so that Nate and the dramatized version of Nate will have a Merry Christmas playing Snap.
Do you guys think it's going to be hard or light on Loki? I want to hear your guys' prediction. You think they're going to go easy on him, or do you think they're gonna bring out the bat they hit Elsa with?
I think they're gonna go easy on him because Loki has a spotlight in January.
On him. If 4 energy, 4 power is in the chat, I would go with that. Or they'll do 5 energy maybe if they're being harsh.
That's 5 energy is a big change.
I love this card. My favorite card. Loki's my favorite card, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll find out. We don't have to wait that long.
No, 2 weeks from the recording of this podcast.
Yep. We'll find out soon.
Safety, do you have any shout outs or final thoughts before we wrap?
No, look, I know it seems like there's been it's a negative patch. Like that's the reality of it. The changes were huge, almost for no reason, and actually narrowed the game. That's my overall thought. But they give you to be positive a little bit. Maybe they'll learn from this that they can't do certain types of changes, and
that's a bingo slot.
I knew it was.
I just want to say this. So we do this podcast for fun. Nate and I, this is kind of our content creation with respect to Snap, but you, SafetyBlade and Zombies, you guys do a lot of content creation. You're a lot more plugged in. You have a lot to lose to speak your mind. And I think that a lot of individuals, a lot of them are quite vocal, but there's a lot of folks who don't weigh in at all. And I think that it's actually, it shouldn't be, but I believe it's incredibly brave of you to speak up, because you will get flack for this. And your other takes that you have online. And I think that just for me, I appreciate you guys kind of putting your money where your mouth is and staying true to yourselves. And that's the keeping it Cosmo spirit right there in action. So I applaud you both, and I hope that you don't get too much flack over this. Yeah.
Just need my Cosmo sunglasses to black out all the haters. But yeah, it all comes from anything said negatively is not because of like wanting to dislike or hate the game. If I hated the game, I wouldn't really care enough to talk about it. Like, why would I talk about something I don't like or am not invested in? It's purely from, hey, this stuff could be a lot better than it is. And, if they say they want feedback on a bunch of stuff, well, I'm going to give the feedback how I feel. Some people will like that, some people won't, and that's okay, because Everyone has an opinion, and it's okay to have it's okay to agree. It's okay to disagree. It's fine because everyone at the end of the day is invested in the game because ultimately we all like the gameplay. I don't think anyone would be here if we didn't like the gameplay. And at least so far for me in the early season, aside from when I run into Loki, I've had a fine time playing the game, even though there are a lot of changes I don't like. Actually playing the game when I don't see Loki has been fun.
Fair enough. Well, thanks, guys. We're gonna call it there. We'll talk again in 2 weeks. Until then, keep it Cosmo, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you all.
Keep it Cosmo.
That's right. Keep it Cosmo,
Keep it
everybody.
Cosmo. Leave Loki alone.
Enough
Leave
said,
Loki alone.
bub.
You'll edit that out and post. It's fine.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.